Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava. Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Radhari, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Yasura Nandana, Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana, Jaya Yasura Nandana, Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana, Jaya Yasura Nandana, Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana, Jaya Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana, Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivaja Pachaya Astotara Sata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Charanara Binda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Sri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Jai, Sri Sri Gaura Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Govardhana Dari Ki Jai, Krishna Balaram Sri Giriraj Govardhana Ki Jai, Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 16, the pastimes of the Lord in his childhood and youth. This is text 1. So it's a tricky Bengali verse, everyone. You may have to help me out. Do we have any Bengali pundits here? Well, we'll give it a try. Let's see how we go, everyone. Kripa Shudha Sharidyasya Vishvam Aplavantyapi Nichagaiva Sadabhati Tam Caitanya Prabhum Bhaje. Kripa Sudha Saridyasya Vishvam Aplavyanti Api Nichagaiva Sadabhati Tam Caitanya Prabhum Bhaje. Someone else? Vaishnavis? You can try. Kripa Shuri Saradyasya Vishvam Aplavyanti Api Nichagaiva Sarabhati Tam Caitanya Prabhum Bhaje. Kripa Shudha, of the nectar of the mercy, Sarit, river, Yasya, whose, Vishvam, the whole universe, Aplavayanti, inundating, Api, although, Nichaga eva, more inclined to the poor and fallen. Sada, always. Bhati, is manifest. Tam, him. Caitanya Prabhum, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhaje, I worship. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. I worship Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, whose nectarian mercy flows like a great river, inundating the entire universe. Just as a river flows downstream, Lord Chaitanya especially extends himself to the fallen. Please repeat. I worship Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, whose nectarian mercy flows like a great river, inundating the entire universe. Just as a river flows downstream, Lord Chaitanya especially extends himself to the fallen. Purport. Narottam Das Thakur has sung, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Doya Kara More. He prays for Lord Chaitanya's mercy because he is the mercy incarnation, having appeared especially to claim the fallen souls. The more fallen one is, the greater one's claim to the favour of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One must only be very sincere and serious. Despite being contaminated by all the bad qualities of this Kali Yuga, if one surrenders under the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord will surely and certainly deliver him. The best example is Jagai and Madai. In this age of Kali, practically everyone is like Jagai and Madai. But the Sankirtan movement, inaugurated by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is still flowing like a great river, inundating the entire world. And thus, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is successfully claiming all fallen souls to free them from contamination. So Prabhupada has written an introduction here. I'll read that as well. Chapter 16, the pastimes of the Lord in his childhood and youth. This chapter fully describes Lord Chaitanya's Kaishore Leela, or the activities he performed just before attaining youth. During this time, he studied deeply and was victorious over greatly learned scholars. During his Kaishore Leela, the Lord also sported in the water. He went to East Bengal to secure financial assistance, cultivate knowledge, and introduce the Sankirtan movement. And there he met Tapan Mishra, whom he instructed about spiritual advancement and ordered to go to Varanasi. While Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was touring East Bengal, his wife, Lakshmi Devi, was bitten by a serpent, or by the serpent of separation, and thus she left this world. When the Lord returned home, he saw that his mother was overwhelmed with grief because of Lakshmi Devi's death. Therefore, at her request, he later married his second wife, Vishnupriya Devi. This chapter also describes the Lord's argument with Keshava Kashmiri, the celebrated scholar, and the Lord's criticism of his prayer glorifying Mother Ganges. In this prayer, the Lord found 5 kinds of literary ornaments and 5 kinds of literary faults, thus defeating the Pandit. Later, the Kashmiri Pandit, who was known to have been victorious all over the country, submitted himself to the goddess of learning, and by her order, he met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the morning of the next day and surrendered unto him. Omajnana timanandasya gnanjana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam jena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhaite garim yat kripa tamaham vande Sri Gurum dinataranam. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master has very kindly come, forced open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I offer my most respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. By the grace of my spiritual master, the Saviour of all fallen souls, even a blind man can see stars in the sky, a lame man can cross over mountains, and a dumb man can recite eloquent Vedic poetry. So, Srila Prabhupada was asked by one of his early disciples, Prabhupada, please give me your mercy, because I am the most fallen. And Prabhupada responded, you are not the most anything. But we're especially fortunate in this age that so recently Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared fulfilling many different purposes, one of which is to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement. And he appears quite early in the Kali Yuga, just 4,500 years in. So we can see that there's still, up until the time of Mahaprabhu and even today, just hanging on. There is still some religious principles being followed in different parts of the world, but that will gradually deteriorate more and more. But at least some remnant passed over from the previous Dwapara Yuga for at least the first 5,000 years. So Mahaprabhu appeared right at the beginning, you could say, of the age of Kali, which does last for 432,000 years. It's a very long time. It's the shortest of the 4 ages, and it's likened to the winter age. Most people, especially living in cold climates, don't very much look forward to winter. It's very austere, bitterly cold. Cannot even move about very easily due to snow drifts and ice and just intense cold or torrential rain and so on. So the winter age is the age of Kali. The other ages, Satya, known as the golden age, age of truth, where most persons are profoundly spiritually minded, and then it decreases 25% to the next Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and then Kali Yuga we see maybe there's, if we're lucky, 25% of religiosity or spiritual involvement or interest is there. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu extends himself especially down to the most fallen, which is good for us, which is lucky for us, because Kalo Sudra Sambhava, in this age everyone is described as lower, born lower than a Sudra. So in other words, 5th, 6th class human beings. But Mahaprabhu's mercy flows down to the most fallen. So that's his kindness upon us. And of course, many wonderful pastimes, and we'll resist the temptation to jump ahead and describe, as Prabhupada has summarized in his introduction to this chapter, many wonderful pastimes that Mahaprabhu performed even in his later childhood. And we know that Krishna has these 6 opulences: beauty, strength, fame, knowledge, wealth, renunciation, and there's one other which I did write down here. Which one did I miss? Can anyone? Fame, thank you. Yes, he's the most famous. But one of those 6 qualities is he's full of all knowledge. So even as a youth, Mahaprabhu exhibited his unlimited knowledge. Krishna is known as Ananta. Means he's unlimited in all these opulences. So he's unlimitedly knowledgeable. They've actually been described, these qualities of Bhagavan, by Parashara Muni, who is the father of Srila Vyasadeva, and some credit him as the author of Vishnu Purana, another one of the 6 Puranas for persons primarily situated in the mode of goodness, Sattva Guna. Vishnu Purana, Padma Purana. Of course, foremost for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas is the Bhagavat Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam. But Parashara Muni, he has given this definition of Bhagavan, which means the Lord who is the unlimited reservoir of all opulences, those 6 opulences. And one of them is knowledge. So even as a young man, a youth, Lord Caitanya was able to very easily defeat Keshava Kashmiri, famous Digvijaya Pandit. Digvijaya means one who has conquered in all 8 directions. In those days, for Brahmin boys who were blessed with profound intellect, intelligence, and also known as Shrutidar, which means one who is blessed with very good memory, their sport, if you like, was to debate and to defeat other great scholars. And that would improve their prestige. They would gain followers and wealth from doing that. So Digvijaya, Keshava Kashmiri, he travelled everywhere throughout India and had defeated all the other pundits. And when he came to Navadvip, he met his match in the form of a young boy scholar, Nimai Pandit, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So that will be described very nicely here. And also, as Prabhupada has described in this purport, the best example is Jagai and Madai. So this is another pastime that Mahaprabhu performed in his youth. A little bit later on, it's thought that Mahaprabhu, when he returned from Gaya, after being initiated by Srila Ishwarapuri, he was no more than a youth of perhaps 16 or 17 years, and it was that at that age Mahaprabhu began the Sankirtan movement as a relatively young man. And of course this pastime is a long way off, so we can be forgiven for describing it briefly now. How the original Sankirtan party was Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur. And they were ordered by Lord Caitanya directly, go to every house in Nadia and beg the inhabitants, please chant the names of Krishna and Hari. And I want to hear a report every night of your achievements. So they were doing that. Haridas Thakur was considerably older than Nityananda Prabhu, relatively, quite a bit older. But still the two great souls went, and they got different receptions in different households. Many people were only too happy to oblige and chant Hari, Hari, Krishna, Krishna. Others wanted to feed the two lords, the two great souls, Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur. But they would say, the only charity we beg is that you chant these names on the order of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And they would go on their way. And they would report back. And after some days, on one occasion, they had reached the outskirts of Navadvip. There was one road leading off into the jungle, and they had visited almost every house in the road. But then at the end of the road, they saw there were two fellows fighting with one another, fist fight, pulling each other's hair. So one of the local residents warned them, don't approach those fellows, they're very bad men. They will do you harm. That's Jagai and Madai. They were originally born in very respectable Brahmin families, but they became somehow or other utterly corrupted, and now they're drunkards and thieves and rogues. And even though the local magistrate has arrested them many times and imprisoned them for considerable periods of time, they always go back to their old bad habits. So best you don't approach those fellows. But Nityananda Prabhu was insistent that on the order of Patita Pavana, Lord Caitanya is known by that name, which means the deliverer of the most fallen, we have to approach. So they did approach. And initially, the first day, they were chased by Jagai and Madai, who were drunk and abusive. And they chased the two great souls. And Haridas Thakur, being elderly, was not impressed with Nityananda's insistence that I warned you. They were running and squabbling with one another. Haridas said, I told you this was not a good idea. The local people warned us. This is not a good idea. Now our lives could be finished at the hands of these two dacoits. And Nityananda responded, what can I do? I'm a drunkard and I like to associate with other drunkards. So somehow or other they escaped. Of course, Nityananda Prabhu's drunkenness is his intoxication with love of Godhead, not by any fermented rice wine, as was being consumed by Jagai and Madai. So, of course, they managed to escape with their lives, and they reported to Caitanya Mahaprabhu. But again, they went back the next day, and that's when things got really ugly, as they say in the modern world, because Nityananda Prabhu was physically attacked by the two. He even had a piece of rejected clay pot thrown at his transcendental head. It drew blood, and this was quickly reported back to Mahaprabhu, who went there and invoked his Sudarshan Chakra to chastise the two miscreants. But Nityananda Prabhu, supremely merciful, intercepted on their behalf and begged them, Lord, if you kill these two, then you may as well kill everyone in Kali Yuga, because everyone is practically, as Prabhupada mentions here, as fallen as Jagai and Madai. So they surrendered, Jagai and Madai, to the lotus feet of the two lords, and ultimately became reformed. And Madai Gut in Navadvip, it is Madai's gut. I think it was Madai who built on the order of Lord Nityananda a beautiful bathing ghat, so that all the pilgrims and all the local people of Navadvip, when they went down to bathe in the river Ganges, they would have nice steps to go down. He built that. and is, of course, forever glorified for doing that. And even he was asked by Nityananda, you please apologize to every person that comes here to bathe in this nice bathing ghat that you've created. Beg them for forgiveness for all of your and your brother's offences. So in this way, Mahaprabhu is so supremely merciful. Parama Karuna, Param Duhijana, Nitai Gaura Chandra. Parama Karuna is supremely merciful. The two Lords. So, this is a wonderful time of the year. Of course, Krishna says, I am flower-bearing spring. And so many wonderful garlands being offered daily to their lordships and Srila Prabhupada during this flower-bearing spring month. Krishna says, I am the months of November and December. So, and also, wonderful time of the year all over the world. Many devotees are going out, distributing Srila Prabhupada's books with great enthusiasm, increasing more and more. And not sure if the Harinam Ruchi boys have moved on from schoolers. Yes, they are travelling somewhere else now. And did you have Harinam in Surfers last night, Basastresta? You did, fantastic. Great. And we'll be going out again tomorrow, everyone. For those of us who aren't night people, we'll be going. Some of us can't drive so well at night anymore, so we like to drive during daylight hours. Safer that way. Some of us seniors. So we're wonderfully led around every Sunday, just in case you don't know. We'll give Vishnu Jan Prabhu Dasarikari a bit of, he has the best name for a Sankirtan leader. So for some of us seniors, we like to shuffle along on a Sunday. Tomorrow, Family Day, fantastic. That's the appropriate term, yes. Family Day at the markets, wherever they're being held up and down the Gold Coast. And tomorrow's Byron Bay, everyone, first Sunday of the month. And the tourists are pouring into Byron, so it's really enlivening. And was it Prabhupada? Someone said, in the beginning they will laugh at you. They may even despise you for a while, but eventually they'll love you. And Lord, He knows, we're really experiencing the love out there at the moment. Everything else is pretty much puna punas chavita chavananam, chewing the chewed. But when the Harinam party turns the corner, people especially, and there are many millions of people who've never seen devotees before, they see the bright-faced devotees on the Harinam party, hear the Mahamantra. Even once it's said to hear Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That's life-changing, epiphany moment. And of course, people that show a little interest, they get some small piece of literature encouraging them to chant. So it's very enlivening. And our revered Sriman George Harrison Prabhu, he wrote a wonderful song once, which is, take care, beware of soft shoe shufflers dancing down the sidewalk as each unconscious sufferer wanders aimlessly. Just a few words from one of Sriman George's songs, inspired by Srila Prabhupada to write so many songs about Krishna consciousness. So that was indicative of the devotees. Soft shoe shufflers, because in those days, if we had a pair of thongs, we were doing well, or if we had a pair of canvas shoes, we danced down the sidewalks as each unconscious sufferer wanders aimlessly. So it's very enlivening, Harinam Sankirtan, and as many of us have done Harinam Sankirtan in different parts of the world, we have to say that this part of the world, Gold Coast, northern New South Wales, it's such a wonderful part of the world to go on Harinam Sankirtan. Big cities in the world, we know you have to travel in vans or use public transport just to get into the city, to park the cars. There's so much difficulty to eventually get out on the street and perform the Yuga Dharma. But in this delightful part of the world, it's relatively easy, and people are so grateful, so appreciative. So just a little plug there for Harinam Sankirtan, everyone, in this auspicious month of December, just starting. So let's see. And Mahaprabhu we see everything that Lord Chaitanya did, even from his earliest childhood, was meant to encourage people to chant the holy names of the Lord. For example, Mahaprabhu appeared on an eclipse. And it is the Hindu custom, whenever there's an eclipse, pious people go to holy rivers and bathe in the Ganges or Jamuna. So many holy rivers there are throughout Bharatvarsha. So everyone was doing this. This was arranged personally by Mahaprabhu to appear at that time when everyone would be chanting Hari, Hari and the Maha Mantra. And of course we know as a baby Mahaprabhu would cry, and he'd only stop when the ladies attending him would chant Krishna's names. So in this way, even from his earliest childhood, Mahaprabhu was initiating the chanting of the holy names. So that is his supreme mercy. And let's just see here. Hare Krishna. Yes, and of course he did it in his scholastic youth by becoming he's the incarnation, he is Krishna himself. From me all knowledge, remembrance and forgetfulness, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Vedaischa savera ham eva vejo vedanta krit vedanta vid eva chaham. That I propound this Vedic knowledge. It's from me that it all comes. So, and in the Vedic wisdom, we have two divisions. We have what is known as Shruti and Smriti. Shruti means to hear, and Smriti means to remember, especially human beings being able to remember. So, Shruti and Smriti. And there is a wonderful verse, very famous, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vinim Vina Ahaitaki Ahare Bhakti Upataja Bhakaupate. That devotional service of the Lord which ignores the Shruti, the Smriti, the Narada Pancharatra, Puranas, etc., is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. So, such a vast wealth of transcendental knowledge is there in Vedic culture, which we can take advantage of. Original four Vedas, Rig, Yaja, Sama, and Atharva Vedas, and then the distilled essence of those known as the 108 principal Upanishads, and then the distilled essence of all of that is known as Vedanta Sutra. And then the 18 Puranas, 6 of each as we mentioned. There are 6 Puranas which are especially meant as reading material for persons primarily covered by the mode of ignorance, tamaguna. And then another 6 for persons primarily dictated by the mode of passion, rajaguna. And then another 6 for those who are primarily attracted to the mode of goodness, sattva guna. But even in the other Puranas, for example, and the biggest Purana is actually the Skanda Purana, and there are many, many chapters in Skanda Purana, meant for persons in the mode of ignorance, which describe bhakti, pure bhakti. There are wonderful descriptions of the different holy dhams, like it's known as the Dwaka Mahatmya, of the Skanda Purana. There is also wonderful descriptions, Krishna's abode in Dwarka. There's also wonderful glorification of Purushottam Kshetra, Jagannath Puri in Skanda Purana. And the glories of Lord Jagannath. And much, much more. So that is meant to encourage people to come up. Tamasima Jyotigrama. Come out of the darkness, come to the light. Tamas and Jyotir, opposites. Tamas means darkness and Jyotir means illumination, self-realization. So, and Smriti, to remember, and there is a famous verse, Ante Narayana Smriti, which means throughout one's life, but most importantly at the time of death, one should try to remember Lord Narayan, Krishna. That's considered the perfection of life, to remember the Supreme Lord. And of course, in order to do that at the time of quitting the body, one has to practice during one's life. And then it becomes relatively easy. That becomes one's shelter. To do as much bhakti, as much devotional service as we can during this lifetime. We want this certificate from Krishna, Prabhupada said once. This man, woman, has done something for me. So that certificate we carry with us to the next life. Other certificates we may achieve with great deal endeavour, different certificates, diplomas, and so on, degrees. We can't take them with us to the next life. But the certificate that we've done something for Krishna in this lifetime, that carries with us to the next lifetime. So, and there is, of course, of the 21 principal demons that Krishna and Balaram liberated 5,000 years ago, they all represent different unwanted anartha, unnecessary, unwanted qualities which the aspiring devotee has to systematically offload. And we know that Krishna, in the first year of the Lord's pastimes, he liberated 3 very powerful demons, starting with Putana, who represents crafty sadhus who come in disguise, and rather than inspire their followers, their disciples, with genuine transcendental knowledge, they encourage them in jnana and karma. That's Putana. Crafty, she represents crafty sadhus, because she came dressed not in her original form as a horrible demoness, accustomed to drinking the blood of small children, but she came dressed very gorgeously as a most attractive young woman, almost like a goddess of fortune. But Krishna is so merciful that Putana got, after being delivered, a position as one of the nurses of the Lord in Goloka Vrindavan, which is very special. It doesn't always happen. And of course, next was Sakatasura, the cart demon. And Sakatasura represents the anatta of holding on to bad habits, heavy, because the cart was loaded with all sorts of heavy utensils for cooking. But Krishna kicked it over just as a small child, kicked over that heavy cart full of cooking utensils. So that indicates the devotee unnecessarily holding on to so many old and even new bad habits. But Trinavarta is the one we really wanted to talk about, because in regards to Keshava Kashmiri Pandit, Krishna was abducted This was the third. Krishna was abducted by Trinavarta, who was known as the whirlwind demon, and he took Krishna high up in the sky. And Vasudharastra and I will remember in the late 70s we sold many, many records with a gorgeous painting of Krishna holding on to Trinavarta high up in the sky. I'm not sure who was responsible for making that executive decision to put that particular photo on that record, but nonetheless we sold tens of thousands of them all over the world. And it was definitely a very dramatic, painting. But people bought the albums. They were on LP albums, vinyl, and we, of course, would always give them, if they bought an album or gave a donation, we would give them some literature so that they would listen to the Maha Mantra, and in this way, all of these wonderful Hare Krishna temples in many parts of the world were established. But Trinavarta, he represents the vain glory for learning, and also diabolical opinions arise quite often when one has a profound amount of knowledge, but not realized knowledge. Gyan, but not vigyan, or realized knowledge. So that's Trinavarta. And of course, Keshava Kashmiri, he was very proud of his vast amount of learning, but he was humbled by Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who was just a mere boy at that time. So, all these wonderful pastimes are described systematically. We're up to chapter 16 of the Adi Lila, gradually moving through. So perhaps, everyone, we can stop here and just see if anyone has a question, a comment, or a correction. We have a microphone there. Otherwise, that's the stress. There's a microphone here if somebody wants to. Somebody's coming. We can have a little discussion.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for your class. It's very enjoyable, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Just when we were talking about Krishna's 6 glories and you forgot the 6th one, I just somehow or other just subconsciously said fame. I was thinking about fame, but it just seems that in India and everywhere that Krishna is the least famous of all the sort of demigods when you compare to Shiva and Ganesh and everything like that. So he's the most famous, yet somehow or other people don't know him, so maybe you might like to make a comment on that.
Thank you. Yes, it's true. Well, yes, of course, Krishna is known as Hari, which means he takes away our distress. He steals away. He's also known as Manohar, which means he steals away our mind if we let him. But many people in material consciousness, they very much want to enjoy. The enjoying propensity is so prevalent, so strong. Purush Bhav, along with the controlling propensity, Ishwara Bhav. Everybody wants to enjoy and everybody wants to control. So we see in bhakti, pure bhakti, we are encouraged to surrender to Krishna and take our enjoyment from the activities of bhakti. Dinabandhu Prabhu tells this story. On a morning walk with Prabhupada, early days, somewhere in California, one young man, great soul, no doubt, but had only been in the temple a few months, and he was on the morning walk with just a few devotees. And when he got his opportunity, he tried to impress Prabhupada by suggesting that since moving into the temple, he'd been denying himself all forms of enjoyment. But rather than being impressed, Prabhupada was very concerned for this new devotee. And he stopped his morning walk. And devotees gathered around, and Prabhupada said, that's not our philosophy. Our philosophy is to enjoy. And he asked this new devotee, were you in the kirtan last night? And the devotee said, yes, Prabhupada. That was not enjoyable? And the young devotee said, oh yes, Prabhupada, dancing, singing, very blissful. So Prabhupada said, this is our enjoyment. And what are other classes? Because Prabhupada was just visiting this temple for a few days. Are the classes here not inspiring philosophically? And the young devotee said, oh yes, Prabhupada, I'm learning so much. Really, the philosophy is just... So this is real enjoyment. And the prasadam here for all of you is nice, prasadam. Oh yes, Prabhupada, I'm tasting things I've never even dreamed of. Delicious, nutritious prasadam. So Prabhupada said, yes, this is real enjoyment. This is the enjoyment of human beings, not the enjoyment of cats and dogs. So we're getting our enjoyment in this way. But many people, they think if I surrender to Krishna, then he's going to take everything away from me. But yes, he does take away the distress, but of living in the material world. But what he replaces it with is just inconceivably more wonderful. The bliss of spiritual life, not just the sat or the chit, but the ananda, the bliss. Not just an understanding of eternality, that we're not the body, we're spirit, soul. But actually profound. But of course we have to do it, and many people are not willing to take that leap of faith to surrender to Krishna. A little bit like licking the outside of the jar of honey without actually putting one's finger in the jar and tasting the sweetness of the honey. So it's not an intellectual or academic exercise bhakti. It's not armchair philosophy. It's actually requires some activity, some action, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, actually doing something, attracting Krishna's attention, attracting the mercy of the Lord and the blessings of the Vaishnavas and gurus. Yes, it's quite often there in India especially, and all over the world, people are anxious to worship devatas because they very easily, Lord Shiva, Goddess Durga, they're great devotees of Krishna. And they do give material blessings very readily, and but all that does is perpetuate one's sojourn in the material world. Another birth. And even one may be promoted to heavenly planets for some time if one is exceedingly pious, but then one has to come down and take a birth all over again. And as we mentioned, we don't want to come back too often as this Kali Yuga progresses, becomes very increasingly nasty. Hope that's helpful. Vasudhreshta Prabhu, thank you. Vaishnavi has a comment or a question or a correction.
Thank you for the class, Prabhu. You were mentioning about the different demons in Vrindavan and that they represent some anartha, some unwanted things in the heart. So I had heard that there are two demons that represent some anartha, that even the process of bhakti won't overcome it. We have to make our own endeavor. So my question is, what are those, who are those demons, what are the anarthas, and how can we overcome those unwanted things practically today?
Okay, I have not heard of those two demons. Do you know?
I don't remember.
Did somebody share that but didn't give who they were? That's unfortunate.
I did hear, but I don't remember.
You can't remember who they
Kali Yuga,
are? Okay.
maybe.
I don't know, I'm sorry. Anybody know
maybe
the two demons? Vasu, you've not heard?
Ikshvaku.
Ikshvaku Prabhu, do you know the two demons that So how do we overcome them? Just purely by Krishna's mercy? Is our own endeavour, you said, Vaishnavi. Is that how we overcome those two?
There's two demons that
Okay. Okay. No, I'm sorry I can't help you with that question. Okay. Maybe you can, yeah. Yep, I'd be interested to know. Maybe if you can do some research and get back, that would be helpful. All right, everyone. Anything else? Okay. Jai Sri Caitanya Charitamrita ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Go Premanandi.